Seems like we've begun once again. Let's get some tunes going. Okay, so as in the previous times, this is a stream where I'm slowly working on video games. That's the thing we're doing here. Very slowly trying to build a video game out. Oh, in our last episode, we finished this search bar. So now, when we type into the search bar here, hello there, you gradually issues a debounced search request, but it doesn't do anything with that search request, so that's going to be our next step. Close that off. So where do we go from here? I think search results is where we go after search bar. Or, I mean, the question is, like, what does a single search result look like? Like, maybe what we need next is an object that represents a single search result, which in this case we're doing a community search. There are lots of communities, and we're trying to find a specific community in the set of all communities that exist. Okay. So, good start might be localhost. Let's look at the list of communities. We've got names here, but what do we get back from the search endpoint? Here we go. Response. I want the HTML. I want the raw response, please. What? No, this is I guess the find page. This isn't the HTML. This isn't the JSON I'm looking for. Here we go. Show me the JSON. Communities have a name and a slug, and that's it. Oh, I remember that. That's a detail from the design of the back end that's a little frustrating. That they start with just a name and a slug, and if I want more information about them, I have to dig deeper into the community. But also, it's because I haven't done a lot of development on what the actual shape of community data looks like yet. Here the communities are literally just names. So theoretically down the road, a community might have details like a flag, a description, the number of people in that community, but none of that stuff is actually included in the response yet. Community size seems like a big one, but for now it's literally just the name and a slug, and the slug is what you get when you click on it, and it takes you to an individual community page where you can log in. And presumably this individual community page might also have more information about the community to display, but again, this is pretty lightly developed at this point at least. Okay. Yeah, I am making. Not really a JavaScript game. It started as a React. It started as a React app, but this React app doesn't really represent the whole game. It was just an early crack at development. The game I'm imagining, the game in my head, is kind of like an Animal Crossing. So you would start a community online, and then you invite your friends to it and run around doing stuff in your little town together. But we're so far from the point where that's actually, the full developed game that right now it's just can I make essentially a multiplayer chat room, because that's the first step in a long road that eventually gets us to something that's you could all log in and hang out in the same space. But I wasn't intending to do that in the browser entirely. I'm intending to eventually do that in Godot, and so the browser is just because parts of the back end already exist, and when I was developing parts of the back end, it was good to have a front end to connect to it. So I built this out using a little React app. It's actually Preact, but it's essentially React. This part of the app already kind of does what I'm designing in Godot. So if I type in torts, it'll pick out Torts Magorts, this community, and then I can log into this community. And if I have the login, I could actually log into this community. There's a fully working authentication system, and then once you're in a community, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do in there, like invite other people and manage the people in your community. There's a messaging system, just like real basic web stuff. But this is like a super basic React interface, and I'm trying to learn how to use Godot. So we're slowly replicating this functionality, but using an actual proper video game client, which I'm much less familiar with than I am with React. Which is why I'm looking to rebuild that. So I guess I need a community bar, or community widget. I think community widget might be the right term for that. While we're here, just going to bounce that over to here. Okie doke. So I think the next step here is going to be in the components. We're going to create a new folder, and that folder is going to be called Community Widget. Is that descriptive enough? Community Display Widget? No, we'll start with Community Widget. We can work from there. And then that's going to contain a scene. And a community widget. It's going to start with a UI element, and that's going to contain a panel. And that panel is going to fill all the space available to it. Inside that panel is going to be, let's see here, add a child node. Let's give it some padding. So margin container. I'm getting better at this. I learned most of this yesterday, but I'm becoming more conversant with how to develop these UIs because of all the time I spent on it yesterday. Margin container goes in a panel. Inside the margin container goes a vertical stack, VBox container, and then, okay, I agree that making a multiplayer game as your first game is crazy. Like, obviously, you should start by making something much simpler, but I have made simple little games. I made like a simple little Godot game earlier, and I've already forgotten everything I knew about Godot in that phase. But I've also, I currently work for VRChat as their lead server engineer, so the part that is the multiplayer part is something I'm super conversant with and I'm really good at. And the part that I'm really bad at is how to make a front-end video game to attach to all the stuff that I already know how to do. So I'm starting with like a little bit of pre-existing knowledge. And so the idea that like, the thing though is that like, there are parts of making a multiplayer game that are hard on the client side that I don't really understand. So I get that's going to be a problem. Like, if you're doing, I can build the socket interface that connects two clients, but when it comes to synchronizing what's happening on those two clients, I am going to be a little weaker. But I don't know. You gotta start somewhere. I'm gonna be happy if I can just get like multiplayer chat working. And so, let's see here. Oh, a name. Add child. This would be a label. Label. And then we're inspector. Name of container. Name of community. Okay. So I was promised a margin container. Where's my margin at? I can manually set this margin. I think that like there's theme and theme overrides, and so I can manually set the margin in the theme overrides. I discovered this yesterday, but I could also set a default margin in the theme, and then everything that the theme is applied to should have that same margin applied to it. Yeah, so the plan is actually to use WebSockets for all of the interaction between players. And I've got sort of an idea how I'm going to, like, within a community, I was just going to have it create, like, everyone connects with a single WebSocket connection, but then once you're connected to a WebSocket connection, you'll subscribe to different rooms, and then each room can then post all updates to that room, to the socket that you're connected to. So, and that code exists and works, more or less. I wrote it in Rust, and it's just sort of sitting there waiting for me to connect more stuff to it. Sorry, I got distracted. I was trying to put a margin around this. And I was thinking about how I should have a default margin set in the theme, because right now there's no margin on this margin. I could override it with the constants here, but I have a theme. So if I go into my default theme, and I find... If I go like margin container, maybe is the type? Margin container. Add a type. No, I just added a type. Isn't that what I just did? Okay, I'm still working on how to figure out this theme interface, because I want to override all. This theme interface is very confusing to me. What am I doing? I would like a default 5-pixel margin on everything that has a margin? Yeah? That doesn't seem to have done it. There's no margin happening here. Save? No. I don't seem to have accomplished anything. Trash? It's gone. Margin container. Add? What if I add margin container a second time? Still margin container. And then here okay, so if I were to set 5s here, and then it puts it up here? Okay, I'm gonna do 5. And then rename, no, remove. It's kind of what I want. Ooh, are we gradually turning night colored? My screen, it's changing colors as the evening rolls in. Okay, so now I have a margin container with these 4 defaults set. If I save, then this default theme should apply. I guess, do I have the default theme applied? I kind of assume it's gonna cascade down, but I haven't put this scene in the cascade, right? So I guess if I would have to drag the default theme into here, and then it applies my font. I hadn't seen the font there either. Okay, but then where's my margin? Where's my nice margin buffer? If I set this larger, it'll be more obvious when it's actually applied. 50, 50, 50, 50. Yeah, and then I save, and it has done nothing. Yeah, I am frustrated that. Honestly, again, I'm still learning this theming system. The UI system in Godot is very, very powerful, and there's like 1 page of documentation on the whole theming system, which I've read through and through, and has not prepared me for any of the complexity they're throwing at me here. And so, like, I would like to set a default margin for all margin containers in the theme window. That's the task that I'm throwing myself at right now. But as for how it's working out, we're struggling a little. Like, shouldn't maybe like the default preview also have the margin that I've just applied to it? Has the bottom gotten bigger? If I get rid of this margin bottom, no, there's still doesn't do anything on the bottom here. Okay, well, yes, add that, set it to 50. This does seem like what I want. How do I get that to apply? Or save, or... For it all. Oh, this is all stuff that I feel like I've done. Okay, save. Okay, here in the margin container in the community widget, this container, now it has the theme applied to it. I haven't overridden the theme, right? Oh, I'm holding the margin container. Oh, did I apply the margin? Did I apply the theme to the VBox container? Because I wanted it at the very top of the stack, not like way in the middle of the stack here, right? Okay, so we go all the way up to the community widget. and we can apply the theme at the community widget level. And there's my margin. It worked. Huh. I want the margin to be a little smaller, but I'm glad that the thing that I tried actually worked. Okay, so if I had this as part of like an overall scene, like if this community widget lives inside a search results widget, which lives inside the community finder, I'd expect the theme to cascade all the way down from the community finder, or even from further out, like whatever the outermost UI element should apply the theme to the whole stack. But then when I'm editing not themes, but when I'm editing things individually, they're not going to have that theme applied unless I apply the theme at the top level of each individual file, which is a little bit inconvenient. I'm wondering if there's a way around that. Maybe I can set like a default theme for the entire project somewhere. I might leave that as a exercise for the future, but it's something to think about, because it'll be a little inconvenient to set the theme in every single widget I develop. Not terrible. Okay. Name of community seems like a start, and then I want a way to get into the community. So that would be a button. The next step would be a button. Button. And the button will be like, log in. Ooh, that's a chunky boy. Okay, but that is kind of what I want. Name a community and then a login, and then that's actually all of the window I need, really. Also, I want the name of community to be big and visible, and I don't need the login button to be quite this aggressive. Again, this is a styling issue. Okay. So, I mean, I feel like this is sized to take up the entire window, which makes sense if this is contained within something else, but maybe I just need this to be not like, I don't need it to be as big as it needs to be. I just need it to be as wide as it needs to be. No, that doesn't feel good. Anchor preset. This anchor system can be very confusing. We're just anchoring this, but we don't really want to anchor it. We want it to fill all the space it has available to it. It's just that I don't want the space available to be quite so large. I mean, the idea is that I would fit a bunch of these one after the other, and then each one would only have so much space assigned to it. I don't want to grow too big. Can I just unset that? No, that doesn't do nothing. The way that alignment and anchors works in this is very different from CSS, which is something I'm much more used to. Okay, so what are some of my current goals? I would like to make this button a little smaller and make the text in this button a little less prominent. I would like to make this whole window a little thinner. I'd like this window to maybe just be like a thin, transparent window rather than a full block like this. That would maybe be a theme override. You go into the panel, go into the theme overrides, and I don't want to use the default style box flat. Or I do, but I want rounded margins, not rounded margins, rounded borders, and like a transparent backdrop so that it just sort of sits nicely on top of something else. Sort of a visible border. Oh, I could have a border. Okay. Show me a color picker. No? Do I have to make a new style box flat if I want to edit any of these? I feel like I might actually have to... style box flat. I've created a style box flat here now. This is a new, unique style box flat. What if I want to save these somewhere? Can I just create a new style? Oh, that does seem like a thing I might have done. So maybe we could call this like default UI box. hero. Maybe just like simple container. Simple thing container. We've saved this so we can like use it again in the future. Maybe that's a style. Maybe like instead of having it just be a single box, it should exist as a whole style. Because like if I did want it to have a light backdrop, then I'd want the text to be dark against it, and then that starts to feel like a whole like style entry. So on top of having the default style, I would have like a smaller internal style. It's a thinker. Yeah, I think maybe what I want to do, kill simple container box. And then community, and then panel is going to have nothing because it's. But then everything inside community widget is going to have not the default style, but a new theme, and that's going to start. We're going to copy the default theme, duplicate, and we'll call it sub panel. There's a dash. This is panel style. And panel style, which we're going to apply to the community widget here, it uses the same font, but there's a margin container. What I want to do is I want to have a panel style. And here's the style for it, which is that it calls for a style box flat, and we want to replace that with another style box flat, a new style box flat, and then we take this style box flat, and then we start doing stuff to it, like setting the BJ color to a different BJ color. Can we edit it in here? Doesn't seem like it wants us to edit it in here. How do we edit this style box flat? We could save it in a specific location and then edit it from there. So this would be make it unique first. How do I make it unique? Oh well, there's a button that says make unique. That seems like a good start. Okay, so we've made it unique, and then we might want to save it as, and then we'll toss it in UI theme, and we'll call this boxes panels, and this is the panel box. These names might need some work. Okay, so now here we've got the panel box definition, and then in here we could do something like finally change that BG color. Look at that, it's so pretty. I just like looking at colors. Makes me happy. We want to go pretty dark. I'm okay with teal. Let's start with teal and work our way from there. Oh, I lost my teal. Here's a nice teal. Okay. And then corner radius would probably be where I get my nice rounded corners. Look at that, subtly rounded bad boy. Okay, and if I scroll all the way to the bottom, also rounded down there. We haven't worked on the size of this box yet, so it's still a too tall box. Okay, I think our next step is going to be Ooh, I can expand the margins so the box itself can have its own, like, the panel can have margins too? Oh yeah, you can see the margins sort of show up in there. If I set this to something huge, it should be really visible. Yeah. Huh. That ain't bad. Okay. Shadow. This is the shadow that sits at the bottom of this, which... we could give it a little shadow. What if I want it to be black? But I also want it to be mostly transparent. This is very... okay, we'll start with extremely dark. And then we'll give it a... ooh, there we go. Look, it's got a shadow. I mean, this is not how you want your shadow to sit. You want your shadow to sit below the object or below and to the right. Offset. Okay. That's a little more like where the shadow belongs on an object. Of course, now it's much, much too thick and dark. So we'll make it smaller. Half as much shadow. And also, we will make it much more transparent. Just a gentle, just the tiniest hint of shadow is the right amount of shadow. And yeah, it needs to be a little less too. 3 pixels? 2 pixels? Okay, this is coming along nicely. I feel like styling is occurring. In fact, the BG color, we also might want to settle that touch of transparency on that. Oh, let's see, 200. Okay. So we've done one thing, which is set a specific panel style for all of the communities. Name of community. And then we need to make this about tall enough to hold one community. And what if the name is very long, though? I do kind of want like the dynamic height to be set to the height of all the internals. I don't want it just fixed height, because then it might overflow. Okay, so how do we set this to be the height of all of the things contained within? We haven't set either of these to expand. Currently it's filling the entire... it's set to full rect. And what I want is maybe center? See, but now it's no size. Now it is sized to be basically invisible. Set to current ratio? No. Set to current ratio? I don't know what that means, but it's certainly not helping. The way this anchor system works is still extremely confusing to me. Because, like, anchored relative to what? And here it makes sense that if I were to do, like, center top, it should put it in the center of the top. That's the center point. But that's just where it lives. And full rect is like it should just completely fill the object it's contained within, which also makes sense. But okay, let's try dropping a community widget inside a scene where we can have multiple of them, and we'll see more. We'll understand better. Okay, so inside community widget, not inside community widget, but a new component. Create new folder, and that will be community search results. At some point we might make a more generic search results field, but for now I think community search results will be sufficient. Create new scene, and it will be community search results. Jeez. Brain is slow. There we go. Community search results. And what this is going to be is a panel. And that panel is going to contain a scroll, a vertical scroll bar, and that vertical scroll bar is going to contain I guess an H box? No, a V box. Vertical box. V box container. And then, I mean, we'll set this dynamically, but at first, this is a sample of what's going in here. We'll drag in a community widget. Goes in the V box container. Now this is in kind of an insane position because okay, this is currently got no shape to it. 2D search results. Let's say you fill the entire screen again. The panel. Okay, so you fill the entire screen. The panel also fills all the space. The V scroll bar also fills all the space. The VBox container also fills all the space. Everything should fill its entire parent. The community widget should just only be as big as it needs to be and no bigger. Maybe I can set a min width? Is a minimum height a thing that I want to try to set here? That should maybe be in canvas item or control layout. Minimum size seems like a strong start. I mean, it could get bigger, but it shouldn't get wider. I mean, it can get bigger, but it shouldn't get any smaller than, say, 200 pixels. Okay, and so now there's 200 pixels, which is quite large, but like not unreasonable. At 150, and that feels like a thing. Okay, let's slap a few of these in here, in the container, one after the other. Now, obviously, another problem is that they need some space between them. Is that something I could set also in the community widget? There's a minimum size, but can I add like padding between them? Oh, I guess I could give them a margin around them, a margin around the panel. That makes sense. That's a thing I could add. Margin container. So then you've got the panel living inside a margin, and then this margin container should give it some space, and then this margin container should give it space, but this one should be invisible space. If I save that, look at that. Look, see? Ha. I'm very excited by how that went. Okay. Okay. We're thinking. We've made some forward progress, but we're not all the way there yet. These also, they extend outside of the panel that they exist within? Okay, so we got our VBox container, and like clearly these objects are living outside of it somewhat. And maybe we need a margin here as well. Add child node, margin container. We're gonna need so many margin containers. Now that I know that this is how we apply margin to things, like every single thing needs a little bit of margin. And margin container, you fill the box. And this margin container probably needs a custom margin. Can I set this to like 20? Margin top, 20. There we go. Margin right, 20. Margin left, 20. We need a little more margin left. 40. Boom. Oh, isn't that lovely? That's promising, at least. Okay, so we've got search results here, and like this would be like a set of search results, and you might scroll through them. If I had a whole bunch, it should let me scroll. Like if I were to just keep on piling these bad boys on. No, not in the same. God damn it. Why you gotta be treating me like that? I just want to fill the scroll box so that I can scroll. Look at that. There's now more things that I have space for. Now, if I were to, oh god, it's scrolled out off the top. I want it to scroll just down, not up. Maybe that's something I need to configure. Okay, let's run this scene and see what happens. No, select the scene I'm in, man. This scene. Does the scroll do the thing I want it to? What's happening? What is this? This is insane. This is not doing what I want it to at all. Are these positioned absolutely within the control, so they just hang in space? Is that what's happening here? Because that doesn't look like it's scrolling the way it should. That doesn't appear to be doing anything. Also, what is this? What is this white bar? Is that my scroll? Is the scroll container maybe just the thing that's the control for a scroll container and not actually a container that handles scrolling on its own? That would be frustrating if it were the case. It is, oh, that's the V-scroll bar. So do I need a V-scroll container? Maybe this is the bar and I actually need a specific container for it, because that seems like it could be the case. Scroll. Oh, this is scroll container. Yeah, that's maybe the thing that this needs to be. Okay, so we're going to take the V-scroll bar, which is literally just the bar for the container, not the actual container itself. And we want to change its type, which, there we go, change type. How about you be a V-scroll container? Huh? Scroll container, there we go. That makes more sense. And then we rename it to scroll container. Now, obviously, something bad has happened to the things within the container. Maybe it's because they have no minimum width, so we want each community widget. By default, I think I want you to take up as much horizontal space as you can. You expand horizontally. And then you don't care. All of you are just locked to your parent, but that maybe setting them all to expand horizontally is what we want. Doesn't seem to have changed. Community widget. I would like for you to expand horizontally. Take up all the space. Okay. Well, let's see if this scrolls properly at least. Did we at least get that? Okay, yeah, we got scrolling. That's a start. Figuring out why these are width 0 is a little frustrating. I mean, we can set the width manually, but that does feel a little hackish. I prefer it if their width was determined by, if their width was just the maximum width available to them, right? Still, I'm glad I got scrolling working. That's a start. This is a game of margin. Oh, the margin container is not wide enough. There we go. You should be fully expanded. That's good. There we go. We'll run that again. And now we have a stack of communities, all of them with names, all of them with login buttons that don't do anything. Okay. I wanted to fix that login button to be a little bit more demure. Taking a little break to do some thinking. I know, how dare I? Who thinks? Who thinks nowadays? Okay, so what we're going to do, close this. Search results are coming along. Here in the widget, this needs to be smaller. I guess we could just literally make it smaller. Well, maybe not. This button. Tell me about yourself button. Text login. What else would you want to do with the community? That feels like the only thing you really want to be able to do, but it also feels like this shouldn't be the full width. Theme overrides. kind of want the font to be a little less aggressive in here too. I'm gonna set the font size to like 15. That's already better. 20? 15. How about 20 and maybe a little thinner? You know what? Again, I've got a style, but like, should I have a button style that's a little less? No, I should set the style of all of my buttons in my theme, right? I go to my default theme, or my panel theme now, because we're using panel theme here. And I grab the button. We like button. And then for button, we want to change some stuff about it. One of the things we might want to change is the font. I mean, it's the same font, but like maybe we use thin instead of add font to that, and we said like thin or medium. What's a good one? Bold might be chunk. We're already using bold, right? But we want it to be like lighter and more readable. That's a little nicer. But we also want the font to be smaller. Wait, so it's making these much smaller, but it's not affecting that one. Oh, because I overwrote it, that's why. Okay, we'll set that to 20, and then we have to make sure to take away the override here. In fact, we should just remove all overrides if we're editing this directly. Yeah, we got the button. Theme overrides. No, you override nothing. Now you will be affected by 17. And then can I set like a max width for buttons? Or I feel like that's something that should be, it's more affected by its container, right? This currently has no container. I could put it in an H box, and then it just sits as part of a horizontal stack, and then I can decide where it sits in the stack. And so the box container alignment, we want to align it at the end, and then it'll just like anything that I want to put here. If I want to put more buttons, they'll just keep on stacking in at the end. I like that. That's better. I would like a little bit of padding in here, which, I mean, I think we already discussed how we just need margin containers absolutely everywhere, right? Oh, but this is the button itself. The text lives in the button, so there's no element inside for me to use a margin container on, which means instead we have to find the style box flat, the normal style box flat for it, and override it. But I mean, I liked the style box flat the way that it was. Could you give me the style box flat you were already using, rather than just creating a new one from scratch? Okay. This can be frustrating. I mean, such is the nature of learning a new UI paradigm. I mean, we might just have to replace the boxes. We might just have to replace them with our own boxes. Come to terms with the fact that that is a thing we need to do. Maybe I'm not going to fuss with that quite yet. It looks fine for now. Okay, and also this is a little tall. Go to the layouts. Sorry, we got the community widget. We set a maximum height, right? Straight up 100 pixels. Community search results. Run this scene. This feels small and cramped now. Maybe a little bit too much so. What this needs is more kerning, I think. A little more space between letters. Which I had the font open fuss with the font settings any more than font size and font. Maybe I want to kern it a little further apart. Line spacing? No, that should be between lines of the font, not H separation? Oh, let's see what happens if I fuss with that. That's nothing. Line spacing, outline size. Font color. That's an interesting one. These are all colors. This is fonts. A variation of a font with additional settings. So maybe that's how I set the settings here. So I choose a font variation. And then I drag in the base font, which was Sour Gummy Light. Sour Gummy Thin. That's even thinner. I think it was Sour Gummy Light. And then here's where we can fuss with stuff. Kerning on. And if we do want the kerning, we also want extra spacing. A little bit of extra glyph spacing. Yeah. 1 or 2 pixels of extra glyph spacing. Just 1 is enough to give it a little bit more oomph. I might set that up to 22. Maybe 18? 18. There. Maybe that feels a little better. Oh, I started the outer game, not the scene I'm working on, so it's just this outer nothing. Okay, I'll run the current scene, and this is coming along. I want to set that minimum height a little more aggressive. Oh, you know what? This is fine. This is just, I don't know. Is it fine? Is it really fine? What is going on? What is happening here? We've got screen tearing happening. Come on. There we go. Okay. I think our next step is to populate this with actual information. That feels like a thing we should be doing. Okay, so if I want name of community to replace by the name of an actual community, then maybe we need a script for the community widget where we apply a community to it. And then in community search results, we need control over the list of widgets in the stack. Because right now it's just a bunch of made up communities. Okay, let's try to think this through a little bit. And we'll start with script. Here, community widget. Yeah. Create. Okay, so now we've got this fresh community widget script. It extends control, and we're gonna have slug. What we want to do is when we set this, I know we can set a setter here. And when we set this, I wanted to set the title on the name of the, on the label. So maybe we'll change the label's name as well. Just having it named label is maybe not descriptive enough. We want to rename that to community title. Make a function, func, set community title. So here's the thing, is that we could just seek all the way down to where the title is. Like we're doing this from here, so we could go margin container / panel / margin container / vbox container / community title. But already you're going to be seeing why that might be a brittle way to do that, because if we were to like remove a margin container, it would break the code, which we don't want necessarily. So maybe what I want is something that'll find the first child that is named community title, find the first label child names community title and says text. Nope, that's not what I want. Oh, that's there we go, get note. No, do the thing that you just said. I just title label equals get node. Can I do that? Okay, let's look at the documentation for get node. We don't want it to be a relative path or an absolute path, so this is going to fail. We need a find node, not a get node. I guess the next thing to do then would be like find child. Finds the first descendant of this node whose name matches param pattern, returning null if no match is found. Matching is done against node names, not their paths. We want to use recursive true because we want to search deep down the tree. Nodes are checked in tree order, so this node's first direct child is checked first. Okay, so it's going to do a... It's not going to do a breadth first search. It's going to do a... it is going to do a breadth first search, not a depth first search. So we're going to do all of the child nodes, and then all of their child nodes, and so on and so forth. Which is fine. I mean, we've got a very, linear path to the actual item. This method can be very slow. Yeah, I think that doing this every time we set the community title might be expensive. Maybe we should do that when we're ready. I mean, the thing is we kind of do know the fixed address. It's just that I'm worried that we're going to change the fixed address when we... and we'll call this title label. We're going to leave that unset, and we're going to set it here when we're ready at once. Recursive is true. We do want to find the first thing that's labeled community label. And then I don't think I care about owned, so it's just find child community title true. And then here, we would just set... Yeah, exactly. We'd do that. What are you complaining about? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, we set the community title. Why is this complaining? Oh, yeah, okay. So we want to set the community title. We'll do that. Now, every time we set this external widget title, we want to set it in here. So we need a setter on this export variable, which does this, essentially. Maybe guarantee the existence like that. And then there's no way for it not to set the title label unless it completely fails to find it, which is an error anyways. Okay. And at which point we don't really need to set it when we're ready because it sets it as soon as it needs it and then only ever does it that one time. This might be unnecessary. We might be able to pull ready entirely, but we're not quite there yet. Let's go GD script setters and getters. I think that's the next thing to look up. GD script setters and getters. Is this modern? Is this for the current version? Oh, it's a whole video. Okay. So we can do it like this. Set. Oh, so. Set. New title string, which returns a void. Sure. Let me just pop this whole bad boy in here. And then think this might be confusing. Yeah. Why is it complaining about the indent here? Yeah. So, we set the widget's title externally. It should find its community title, change it to the new title, and also set the internal value here. That seems right, I think. I'll worry about community slug in a bit. I mean, right now, we just want to be able to set the name. Okay. My next idea. Next plan is to go into the community search results. Oh, there is no search results yet. That's why. Okay, we'll open the community. We'll save this. Widget title. Buried. Needs a script. Search results. Great. Okay. When this boots up, want to clear any results and just put in the results our ham sandwiches. Okay, a single result. Okay, so when this boots up, we need to find the node. Play a game of find the node. Which is our VBox container. Let's rename that so it's easier to find. Put results container. Results container, which is a box container. And we're going to set it to find child. So when we're ready, we'll set that to be the first one we find, and we'll clear it. That seems like a thing. Was it complaining? Was it red? Okay, and then we need to add a single community widget to that container. How do we know? How do we create a community widget? Create a community widget and add it to the results container. Okay, we just know where it's listed and instantiate it. That seems like a thing we could do. Set. Is it not widget title? It is widget title. Okay, widget title. I don't know why it decided that I love these ham sandwiches. It's just ham sandwiches. It's not ham sandwich lovers. I don't know why you had to get so gross with it immediately. Don't do that to your ham sandwiches. Oh, they might have meant it just in a more passive enjoyers of ham sandwiches kind of way. Okay. Do we need to set these before or after we add it to the stack? And, well, my expectation is when I run this, it should put one community called ham sandwiches in the pile. And let's validate that expectation by running the code and see what happens. It breaks. Clear. There's no such thing as clear? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Just made up clear. Okay, so this is a hallucination, or results container isn't defined. Did we find results container? Yeah, let's just start by complaining if that's a thing that I have. No. Okay, so VBox. No, it found a VBox container, which is what the results container. So it exists. So this isn't the problem. The problem is that clear is not a real thing. So what we need to do is go to Godot node documentation. Okay, and what we want to do is remove all children. And there's certainly not a clear in here. I guess we could get children and delete each of them. Oh, so clear is not a thing. Maybe we should make it into a thing. Func clear. Yeah, that's again. This is a hallucination, I think. Get all children. Oh, the results can remove them. Yeah, that seems much more likely to be the right thing to have done. And then here we will. Let's give that a shot. It feels more likely to have been the thing that we needed to do. We've got one. It's ham sandwiches. That's what we wanted. One ham sandwiches container. Great success. Oh, I'm gonna stretch a little bit. Whew. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is tidy up that code a little bit. Because here we have a code that like adds a community widget and func add community result. You know what I want. That's better. Okay. So that's gonna just allow us to, like, let's say we want to do 5 of them. And the next one is Jellytown. Yeah, thanks, Copilot. Okay, it should add 3 different results. Run that scene. Uh-oh. Widget title, value type spring, not a base object. But where is this complaining about it? 22 and add community result. Okay. Here. It's complaining that it can't do that. Do we need to instantiate it first? Didn't seem like it was a problem the first time around. What if we preload this only once? Then we can instantiate it from the preload bunch of times, it feels weird to have to load the file every single time. We'll worry about that later. Currently, I'm trying to fix that bug that we encountered. Okay. Error. Cannot convert argument 1 from callable to object. That's not a terribly helpful complaint. Add child community widget. This is a callable, and it needs to be an object. Is this instantiate? Does this need to be asynchronous? Maybe. Do I have to await it? It's not a coroutine or a signal, so no, we don't need to await it. This didn't work. Okay, well this seems to be the problem here. Is the community widget is like, it's supposed to be a callable, or it is a callable and it's an object. So when we created a community widget here, let's go var community widget. It's a packed scene. We can get it from here. So here we preload the scene, and here we instantiate it, rather than loading it each time. That makes sense. Well, it kind of makes sense. I keep clicking on Discord. I want this. I would like Godot to be the thing that opens. There we go. Ham sandwiches, Jellytown, and my pancake pals. That's good. We can load a whole bunch of results. Okay. Well, now we have a way to display results. What we need next is, I think, a way to get results into here. Excuse me. Also, this needs a loading state and a null state. Two states that are not accommodated by default. Do I work on the loading state and the null state, or do I actually try to connect this to the search bar? Those are both next steps. You know what? I think a good next step here would be just to save my progress. Okie dokie. Back to here. We now have search results. Kinda. And we'll commit that. Okay. So add community result is a good start here. See like a situation where we might want to be able to remove community results from this list, but actually, since it's search results, like, you don't ever take a search result out of a list, right? So that's not really necessary. But we are going to want func. We want to be able to detect if there aren't any results in the list and display a loading state instead. So that might be like a func add search results. Or just like put search results in put search results array. I say it's an array of something. Well, let's just say array for now. Okay, so clear the existing results. Yep. If there are no results, show a null state. we don't actually have a thing to do here. So, not pass, but like to do. What are you complaining about? Oh yeah, it's just it's another hallucination. Okay. Results.size. Maybe I should look up array real quick. GDScript array. Okay. Oh, it does that nice Python array thing where I can come in negatively. 4.3? How about the current version? Ugh, okay. I wanted the current version of this document, not the current version of all documents. This is fine. All any append. I'm looking for size. There we go, size. This is how I would test for an empty array. It would be lovely if you had an empty function. Nobody would complain if there was an empty function that was just a Boolean, you know? But it doesn't, I mean, I could just implement it with size, it's fine. Okay, well, that should do it. Okay, so here's where we would put the search results in. The other thing is, okay, so func loading. Apply loading state UI. And again, to do. Implement loading state, and then clear existing results. Also, clear the loading state or null state UIs. Do we need to keep track of whether we're in those states? We'll worry about that if we actually, when we actually design those. Should I make a community null state object? Should I make a loading object? Or should I start trying to like actually connect some of this stuff up? I feel like I'm getting hungry actually. Maybe the next thing I should implement is dinner. Oh, but I've got viewers on my stream. That's extremely rare. Okay, we can go a little longer then. We'll get to dinner soon. Okie dokie. Oh, I lost one idea. Okay, so I think the next step here is... Yeah, we can leave loading and null state for after we've actually got results flowing in from somewhere. Back to Godot. Okay, so community search results, which contains a community widget. We can close community widget for now. We're not actually really working on that right now. We've got a search bar and search results, and the community finder, which is a little undefined, but I imagine it's going to involve combining the search bar and the search results together into a single interface. I know that might come as something of a surprise. Community search results, search bar, ebox container, you fill all the space, community finder, you fill all the space, search bar. You don't get to decide whether you fill all the space? That's weird. The community search results, again, it doesn't have like a size. Can I set like a stretch for it? Container sizing, horizontal fill, vertical fill, expand. There we go. Okay. But it's expanding over the search bar. That's a little bit of a problem. I want it to start after the search bar starts. That's why I put them in a ViewBox container in the first place. But I guess, is the search bar not taking up any space? I guess a custom minimum size would make sense here. Where the Y of 50 pixels? Yeah. Maybe a little smaller even. No. We want it to sit like right there. Yeah. It was 50. It was 50 right on the money. I nailed it. I nailed it in one. And there we go. We've got a search bar and the thing that it's searching underneath the bar. We'll save that, and our community finder is coming along nicely. Run that scene. There's our ham sandwiches, our jelly town, and our pancake pals. So if we type in ham, I would expect it to, filter this list. I guess, okay, when I type in ham, what I actually want it to do is go to a server and retrieve a list of matching things, not filter a list in place. If we go too far down that local data route, we're going to end up having a bad time. Okay, but that's a fun start. We've got a search bar, and we have a container that we can apply search results to. This is going to produce a signal, and this has a function that allows us to apply results. So we're much of the way to making this do something useful. And so I think what we need also is a script for Community Finder. Which is in Layouts, Community Finder. Okay. And so what we want to do is when we get a signal from the search bar, we want to put results into the search results, and we can skip the part where we actually get anything. For now, we're going to start by, in the Community Finder, we've got a script. We're going to click on the search bar, and then here we have search requested, and we are going to trigger on search bar search requested on the Community Finder script. Connect. Okay. That's a fun start. And we're going to open this, and here is where we find our search results and put them in there. Var search results. It's not a packed scene. Var search results. Just set that var search results, and then if not search results. Yeah, that's a pattern I'm adopting more and more. Go find the search results node. And then that's a control. Okay, so we have a query, and we are going to... Okay, so here's the then go to the server. So first thing we want to do is search results loading, because... And then, but instead we wait 5 seconds or something. We're mocking it up for now. And then we go into our search results and go add, put search results, where we put an array. Put search results. Temporary empty results for testing. That's not very satisfying. What if we take the query and we use it to manufacture a fake search result? I'll go var fake search result equals, and it's an object containing community. Okay, so sorry, the arguments here are title and slug. Let's actually, let's look at what the actual result from that endpoint is. I remember we were looking at it. It's it was the first place I started here. So if I crap open, it's community underscore name and community underscore slug are the actual search results from this endpoint. Okay. I did that real fast. I should have gone a little slower so you could see what I was up to, but if I go to Community Finder, no, Community Search Results, the title is Community Name, and the slug is Community. Okay, yes. Thank you, Copilot. So community name is going to be fake community, and the community slug is fake community, and we're just going to give it that search result. Oh yeah, put search results is actually a function. It's not an underscore function, right? It's just a first class function. Underscore means private. At least in my head, the underscore means private. I'm not sure if that actually goes for everyone, but for me, starting it with an underscore means nobody outside of this should know about this thing. I wonder if I can actually set private in GD script. That would be a useful thing to be able to do. Okay. Let's actually, can I, okay, I see what it's doing here, and that works, but is there like a better template syntax in GDScript? Because that would be really convenient. Every language should have a nice template syntax, and this is not a nice template syntax. This is manual concatenation, which is ugly as sin, but I don't expect GDScript necessarily to have like a super smooth-looking modern syntax functionality, but we could check just in case we GDScript string template data thing format strings. Okay, yeah, that's not terrible. It's not as nice as like I mean, I've seen nicer, but that's not terrible, and I'd rather do that than a concatenate. Okay, so I'm gonna drop in a %s and then just percent in the thing. So if I were to do this, I would be like fake community for %s percentage query. Okay, I've clearly miscounted these a little bit, like that. Yeah, I think that's better than the concatenation syntax, although using a template style of syntax might just be a personal preference rather than, I'm not sure if this is actually cleaner, but I think it is. I think it's actually cleaner. What if I wanted to do multiple things in a row? Oh, you could just pass in so it'd be like %h, %s, and then I could just do like query 2. And I'm not actually gonna do that. I just wanted to see how I would do that if I needed to. Okay. If I search, if I use my search bar, it should put the search query in as a single result, which is a thing that's happening. This is a fake search result, but it's still that's much of the way there. Let's run that and see what happens. Okay, so we type in bow. Oh, that doesn't seem to have done it. Oh, that did it. Fake community for bow. Bop, 750 milliseconds. There we go. It was that 750 millisecond wait and the fact that I don't actually have a loading state. What? No, the loading state wouldn't be relevant because it doesn't. It takes 750 milliseconds to start triggering the search. So if I just press enter as soon as I search, bop-a-doo, and then it'll just go right away as soon as I press enter. But if I delete a couple of these, it'll take a few seconds to trigger the search, but yeah. Okay. So now all I need is, well, first of all, to connect this to the server using an HTTP query, but also a loading state and a null state, and, you know, to pull query results and such. So that's a couple of steps we need to go through. And, I lost all of the viewers that I had a few minutes ago, and I am getting hungry for dinner, so maybe I will save my progress and come back to this after I have made myself a club sandwich. This has been really productive. I feel like I've made a lot of forward progress here today. Look at this. Look at this community finder. It's like a UI that actually does something, kind of. I don't know, I'm just gonna, like, excitedly type letters in here. Excitedly typing letters. Hell yeah. Okay, also this is one of those, this is a bit of a problem. This is going to be just a UI problem, right? You put in more text than actually fits and it ruins the entire everything. How do I fix that? Okay, it might be time to start a list. Start like a notepad of all the things that I need to do. Normally I would keep that on a physical notepad, but like, we're on a stream. You can't see a physical notepad. I'll just have to use a made-up notepad. Oh no, am I definitely not super embarrassing? And this is fake accounts for fake things. Test accounts, okay. Definitely not super embarrassing. How about we start making a little list? We need a loading state. We need a, sorry, I said it earlier, a loading state and a null state. Every form needs a loading state and a null state. It's just the way of things. we need to actually trigger an HTTPS request and return the data. And the UI gets way too wide if the title is too long. That bad. Deal with that somehow. Okay. So we've stacked up a list of things we want to solve. Loading state and null state are easy to deal with. Like, they're just sort of extensions on what we've been doing so far. Admittedly, they're one of my weakest points because I'm not good at this UI development. But I think I want to stash those and work on actually triggering an HTTP request, because that feels interesting and meaty, you know? Feels like something I really dig my teeth into. Okay. Just stash this on my desktop. We'll call it to do text. Okay. Worf. Close that down, and I need to think. The HTTP object needs to be globally available. Oh, this is going to be a thinker. Where do I structure this? Where do I put my idea here is to have an object that exists globally, and it, like, you send it signals to start an HTTP query, and then it emits signals when it's completed with the HTTP query? Is that insane? Maybe that doesn't seem right to me. Like, that's one way to do it, and it would also be a way to like throttle too many HTTP queries happening at the same time. But alternatively, I could just have all of the functions bring up their own, like, okay, so I'm going to start by describing the problem here. If I were just doing this in JavaScript, you'd be like, start a query and then wait for the result, and then there you go. There you have it. It would exist as a function. But in Godot, an HTTP query is not a function that happens. It is a node that you add to your tree somewhere. So you have like an HTTP query node, and that node has to exist, and you have to like find the node, make it do the query, and have it emit a result, I think, as a signal. And so what you could do is when you make a query, you could have code that creates the HTTP node, attaches it to the current container context, waits for it to finish, accepts the result, and then removes the node, which would work kind of like a function. Like that makes it more function-like. But then the question is that the best way to actually structure the code so that you're, like, first, also, there are things that I want to add. Like, I want to have specific HTTP handling code in my software. I don't want to actually reconstruct that entire stack every single time. It would be, I don't want to copy and paste that code everywhere, obviously, but like, even if I had a function that did that, I want to do things like have it delay a certain amount of extra time before starting the query. And that's because, I mentioned this like 2 streams ago, but when you do HTTP queries against a local server, it responds too quickly. And that doesn't provide you with a good like vibe for how your server, your system will actually perform in the real world, because you'll design things with the expectation that the server always responds instantly. So if while you're building, you can say, I would like the server to always take 500 milliseconds to respond, which is a long time, or you can say, always take a variable amount of time to respond. I like to actually set a random amount of time to respond. So, like, sometimes it'll respond in 50 milliseconds, and sometimes it'll respond in 500 milliseconds, and sometimes it'll respond in an entire second, because when you're out in the wild, sometimes shit just takes, like, unexpectedly long, and sometimes it goes really fast, and you have no real way to predict when that's going to happen. And so being able to create an array that's got, like, 6 50s in a row, and then a 200, and then a 500, and then 1,000, and then say, like, select from that set of times, and then apply it as a timer before you do the actual query, it gives you a local test environment that acts a lot more like a server that's in Norway. And So then you're more likely to run into errors caused by loading states. You're more likely to see your loading states. You're more likely to notice when you forgot to build a loading state. And all of those are why I like to have that control over my HTTP code and say, like, it should take a certain amount of extra time when you're developing it. But also, I like to be able to globally set the endpoint that I'm trying to hit once. I would like to be able to have, for example, all of these things just say I'm looking for the thing at a relative point against the server, you know? So when I'm looking for a server, what I'm looking for is not, localhost 3000/community, because the first half of that's going to change when I actually launch this in production, so that's not convenient. And so I just want to be able to say, get me this endpoint. And then this chunk is the part that I want to be configurable, because not only do I want it to be different in production and, testing and local, but also I would be interested in letting users set this themselves, because presumably, I don't know for sure how I'm actually going to run this, but like I would imagine there's a possibility that I open source the whole thing and you could be able to like run your own servers for it, and then you'd want users to be able to put the server in themselves and then have the entire rest of the software work properly, right? So that's why I want to really consider how I'm attaching the HTTP code to this. Although it seems like I could just have like an HTTP do the thing function, a get and a post, like a library, and the library, create a HTTP node, add it as a child to the current node, append the current endpoint, prepend. That's a global variable. And then, wait a random amount of time if we're in dev, or do it right away if we're live. And then after doing all that, wait for the HTTP query to resolve, get the results, return the results, and this is all a long-ass async function. And then I could also, async HTTP post. And this might take the path. It's a get, so you just need the path, I think. Unless you want to pass in cookies. Oh, I guess, the path in the auth. Because you're going to want to have an authentication stack set up. You're going to want to save that authentication somewhere. Another question, I guess, is, put this on my list of things to think about. Where do we store semi-permanent stuff in Godot? First of all, how do we say to Godot, like, make me a patch of data that I can save against that blasts between calls? Because, I would say there's stuff that exists between boots. And then, where does it save that? Save it somewhere on disk? Does it save it somewhere on disk? Would make sense. I mean, like, if you save stuff in Windows, it usually goes into, like local low or something. In your personal, it'd be like users, Qdrone, application data, something like this. I'm probably spelled it wrong, but like this is where stuff goes, and then there'd be a little file that's just like local.save, and it would keep all your stuff in there. And then if we, got an authentication token, we'd stash it in here, and the next time you boot up the application, it would try to reuse the authentication token again. And if that fails, then it would bump you back to the login screen, but if it works, Kaloo, you're already logged into the thing. And then, well, and the question is like, well, then you need to give users a way to log out because they don't want to log into a game and be logged in forever if they log in like on someone else's computer, for example. Anyways, this is all a lot of concerns, but the first concern is just like, where would we put an HTTP node? Should there be a part of our software that like exists as a global node that we connect to and interact with, or should this be like a library that we call? Because my default way to solve this problem would be to build it as a library. But that's just me thinking the way that I think when I think in JavaScript. And when I think in Godot, I don't think the same way as I think as I shouldn't treat Godot like JavaScript. You know, you're supposed to program in more than one language at a time. And so the difference between Godot and JavaScript is that Godot does seem to want you to use nodes more often when you're thinking about how to program things. So maybe there's a global node that gets loaded frequently. And so, okay, we'll create a new scene, and that scene will be called HTTP. And it's not a UI component. This is a core component. Maybe we'll create a new folder and we'll call it HTTP. And we'll create a new scene. And that scene name will be HTTP. Let's just start HTTP scene. Yeah, okay. We're kind of fiddling here. And I don't know if it needs to be a scene though. It doesn't really have to like visual. I'm gonna delete that. Okay, we're gonna create new script. New script. Call it HTTP. And it can inherit node. I think it's just a node. It's not a 2D node or anything. And then in the project settings, we can auto-load that in every scene. So like this HTTP node is just always available in every scene. Wherever we are, we'll always have access to the HTTP scene. And then, wherever we are, we can go talk to that scene and say, please do a query, not a query, but please do please do an HTTP request, and then it'll get back to me. So now http.gd, we might start with, what are we gonna do in the code for this? http.gd. Yeah. So this is the thing I was describing earlier. Clearly, Copilot is on board with my plan here. So when we get, it creates a new HTTP request. We add it as a child. What's your complaint here? Oh yeah, there's already a get. This is a basic get here with no authentication, right? Just a URL. Is this headers? Let's look at that. URL header. Yeah, it is headers. Okay. URL headers method. Int? Oh, method is an int. Okay. So, first the URL, then the headers, then the method, which is an int, and then request data, which we're not passing because it's a get, right? Okay. It's recommended to use CLS, no, of course. We're not going to do that locally, but... Okay, so this is a start. Now here's the thing. We're going to want an endpoint, and that's a thing we'd want to set. So like, export var base URL. Yep. Yep, Copilot knows what's up. And our base URL, our default base URL is going to be localhost 3000 / no /, that's just a, and I don't like to call it it's a. I mean, a base URL does work. I'm just trying to think. There's a better name. It's a host name. It's a host name plus a protocol. Is that an FQDN? I think base URL might be more descriptive than fuckin. Said come on fuckin gods. Okay, so then once we have a base URL, the URL just sits after the base URL. So little thunk URL for path. Yeah. We don't need to trim the suffix here. I mean, I guess we can. It shouldn't have one, but still. And then var final URL equals, yeah, final role URL. Okay, and so now we are adding the base URL to the get. We're going to need to add a bunch of additional stuff here when we get to the problem of authentication, because then we need to like store stuff. I don't know. We'll worry about that. That's a problem for future us. Right now, we're hitting an unauthenticated endpoint because we're not logged in anywhere yet, right? So this is just a simple HTTP GET. This request. Yeah, so like we create, where do we clean this up? I don't think we do clean this up, right? That's a problem. When does this request finish? Does it send a signal when it's finished? I think I might have to open the page for this. I have to go to the docs because the inline docs are not quite enough docs. Okay. Move aside. Format strings. GScript. HTTP. I found the page for HTTP earlier. I've since lost it, as one does. There we go. And once the request completes, so we do the request, and we connect on request completed. Okay, so here's where we okay, here's a question. Because this is, we're going to create here a different node every single time we make a request. And so, is that okay? Should we be sharing this node, or is it just, is it okay to have a separate node for every request? I think it makes sense to have a separate node for every request. Don't leave your auth information inside your Godot code base. That would be a terrible idea. Oh, I could set a custom user agent. That makes sense. And yeah, this is going to be an important header too, probably. Ooh, this JSON.stringify right in the language. That's going to become convenient very soon. We need the on request completed here. So before we make the request, here we put a random amount of timer delay to simulate network latency. To do that. first we need it to like actually work, so we'll worry about that afterwards. And here's the thing, is that this request completed is not necessarily correlated with the HTTP request. Like, how do I, if I were to call HTTP GET twice in a row, it would call on request completed potentially out of order on the way back, which is a concern. I want to maybe, I need to think about that for a second. Yeah, this person who's built a waitable HTTP request in the comments. Removing the need for signals seems like a real upgrade here. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. If I don't make dinner, my wife will start to become sad with me. So it's time for me to end the stream. Thanks so much for watching. I am going to come back at some point in the future and figure out my HTTP syntax in this project.